On September 22, 2025, the world's eyes turned to the United Nations headquarters in New York for the high-level international conference on the two-state solution for Palestine and Israel. The event drew unprecedented global attention as the international community recognized the urgency of finding a lasting resolution to this decades-old conflict. Leaders from around the globe gathered to address one of the most enduring and painful conflicts of our era. The stakes were higher than ever, with the eyes of millions watching and hoping for progress. The atmosphere was urgent. This was a moment for decisive action, not just more talk. Delegates felt the weight of history on their shoulders, knowing that their decisions could shape the future of the region. French President Emmanuel Macron and Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud co-chaired the summit, signaling a strong commitment from both Europe and the Middle East. Their partnership reflected a rare unity of purpose, bridging continents and cultures. The President of the UN General Assembly, Annalena Baerbock, set the tone with powerful opening remarks. She called on all nations to rise above divisions and seize this historic opportunity for peace. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas addressed the assembly virtually, underscoring the stakes for his people. His words resonated deeply, reminding delegates of the human cost of inaction. Among the speakers was Indonesia's newly elected president, Prabowo Subianto, making his first address to the UN. His presence marked a new chapter for Indonesia's role on the world stage. His presence, alongside Indonesia's top diplomats, highlighted Indonesia's renewed commitment to global peace and justice. The Indonesian delegation's energy and resolve were clear to all in attendance. The context was critical. 2025 had seen a surge in momentum for Palestinian state recognition, with several Western nations taking historic steps. This shift in international policy created a sense of hope and possibility that had not been seen in years. This conference was more than a meeting. It was a potential turning point, with leaders determined to turn the two-state solution from aspiration into reality. The world watched, waiting to see if this gathering could finally pave the way for a just and lasting peace. President Prabowo Subianto made Indonesia's stance unmistakable, unwavering support for the Palestinian cause. He reaffirmed Indonesia's solidarity with Palestinians and declared the two-state solution as the only just and sustainable path forward. This vision, he said, respects the rights and aspirations of both peoples, offering hope for peace and security. Prabowo's message echoed international law and decades of UN resolutions. He reminded the Assembly that the two-state solution is a long-promised but unfulfilled commitment. For Indonesia, it's about justice and upholding the right to self-determination. He stressed that a secure, independent Palestine is essential for lasting regional stability, including Israel's. Supporting two states, he concluded, is not about taking sides, but about choosing peace and mutual respect. A central theme of President Prabowo's speech was his urgent call for immediate recognition of the state of Palestine. He challenged every nation yet to act, declaring recognition as a matter of justice and human rights, not a political favor. Without recognition, he argued, true negotiations and a fair peace process are impossible. The time for waiting is over. Prabowo praised recent decisions by France, Canada, the UK, Australia and Portugal to recognize Palestine, calling their actions courageous and historic. He urged others to follow, showing that recognition is now a mainstream responsible position. We must recognize Palestine now, he declared, making this the emotional peak of his address. Every day of delay, he warned, means more suffering and injustice. His plea was a direct challenge to the world's conscience. The urgency in his voice reflected decades of frustration over broken promises. President Prabowo's call for recognition was deeply tied to a message about history and morality. He urged leaders to consider how their choices would be judged by future generations. Recognizing Palestine, he argued, is being on the right side of history, a moral imperative, not just a political stance. He drew parallels to Indonesia's own anti-colonial struggle, framing the Palestinian cause as the last great anti-colonial movement. This resonated with many in the global south, forging a bond of solidarity. Prabowo subtly challenged nations blocking Palestinian statehood, warning they risk being remembered as defenders of an unjust status quo. He called on them to join the growing international consensus for justice and freedom. Ultimately, he urged leaders to act on enduring principles, the very foundation of the United Nations. President Prabowo's address turned somber as he described the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. He spoke of unspeakable tragedy, thousands of innocent civilians, many women and children killed or wounded. His words stripped away politics, focusing on the raw human cost, families shattered, futures destroyed, children traumatized. He highlighted the looming threat of famine, with food, water and medicine desperately scarce. Prabowo called for immediate, unfettered humanitarian access to Gaza. He reminded the world of its moral obligation, not just to end the fighting, but to prevent mass starvation and disease. His appeal was a call to shared humanity, urging action before it's too late. The president's tone was one of profound sadness, not anger. He compelled the world to confront the reality on the ground and act. President Prabowo was unequivocal. All violence against civilians is unacceptable, no matter the perpetrator or cause. He condemned brutality on all sides, positioning Indonesia as a principled advocate for human dignity. His message was universal. Peace cannot be built by choosing one side's suffering over another's. He linked this condemnation directly to the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, urging an end to the cycle of violence. Prabowo called on all parties and their backers to prioritize the protection of human life. This stance reinforced Indonesia's role as a moral leader and supporter of international humanitarian law. The killing of innocents, he declared, is always wrong. This clear moral line grounded his proposals for peace in fundamental human values. President Prabowo moved beyond words, making a concrete offer. Indonesia stands ready to provide peacekeeping forces to support international stability and security. This is not just a diplomatic gesture, but a real commitment to take action where it matters most. We are ready to take our part in this journey towards peace. Please now, peace immediately, he declared, his voice echoing through the UN chamber, urging the world to move from talk to tangible steps. This was not a distant promise, but an immediate offer. Indonesia is prepared to act as soon as the UN gives the mandate, with troops ready and waiting for deployment at a moment's notice. Indonesian troops have a respected history in UN peacekeeping, lending credibility to the offer. Over the years, they have served in some of the world's most challenging conflict zones, earning trust and respect from the international community. The timing underscored the urgency. Debate must give way to action. The world cannot afford to wait while lives hang in the balance and conflicts escalate. Prabowo's microphone was cut after this offer, an ironic symbol of the challenges of pushing for bold action in global forums where bureaucracy and politics often slow progress. Still, his message was heard. Indonesia is ready to help build and maintain peace, working hand in hand with local communities and international partners. The offer stands as a testament to Indonesia's proactive foreign policy and its willingness to shoulder responsibility on the world stage. It signals Indonesia's desire to be a key player in global peace and security and to contribute meaningfully to resolving international crises. The world just needs to give the green light, and Indonesia will be ready to answer the call for peace. Near the end of his address, President Prabowo challenged the world to take historical responsibility for the fate of the Palestinian people. He reminded leaders that today's crisis is the result of decades of broken promises and failed diplomacy. True security for Israel, he argued, is linked to justice and dignity for Palestine. Fulfilling this responsibility is in everyone's enlightened self-interest. Prabowo called on the UN to finally enforce its own resolutions and reclaim its moral authority. He urged a shift from crisis management to a long-term vision for a just and durable peace. The world, he said, must accept its share of responsibility and act with courage. In his conclusion, President Prabowo brought his message into sharp focus. Only a two-state solution can end the conflict and bring lasting peace to the region. He spoke with conviction, emphasizing that the world cannot afford to ignore the lessons of history. He declared this not as mere opinion, but as the logical outcome of decades of failed alternatives and repeated cycles of violence. The international community, he argued, must recognize the urgency of this moment. The status quo is unsustainable. All other paths have led to more violence, suffering, and despair for innocent civilians. The world has witnessed the consequences of inaction and indecision. The two-state solution remains the only viable, internationally recognized way forward. It is the path endorsed by the United Nations and supported by the majority of nations seeking peace. Prabowo's final message was one of hope, insisting that peace is possible if the world commits to this path with sincerity and determination. He called for unity and courage from all nations. He envisioned Israel and Palestine as neighbors, partners, and peaceful members of the global community, living side by side in mutual respect and security. By calling for immediate recognition of Palestine, condemning violence and offering peacekeepers, he positioned Indonesia as a responsible global leader, ready to contribute to peace and stability in the region. His speech was a call to action, conscience, and hope, a reminder that the world must not turn away from this challenge. The quest for peace in the Middle East, he reminded the world, is a shared responsibility that demands collective will and compassion. A just solution is not only necessary, it is possible if the world chooses to act together for a better future.